Welcome back, Troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have the Gibson 2013 LPX. This is essentially the Les Paul brother to the Firebird X. And by little brother, I mean this is pretty much the exact same guitar electronics-wise, except for they changed up the woods. So let's do a quick recap. The Firebird X is a swamp ash body with a maple neck and a maple fretboard. So those are not very traditional woods for Gibson to be using. But this guy changes all that. You get the return of a maple top with a mahogany body. The only thing where this one strays from tradition is you have a granadillo fretboard instead of rosewood. Honestly, if I wouldn't have told you, you probably just would have thought it was a slightly reddish looking rosewood board, so I have no problems with granadillo at all. But this is a super robot guitar. It might look like it has 3 mini humbuckers with a master volume, master tone, and then who knows what all this other stuff is, but that's not exactly what this instrument is. These were built to be the be-all, end-all of electric guitars. It has so many different sounds built into this instrument. These really are quite fantastic instruments if you sit down with them and tackle that brief learning curve. In my last Firebird X video, I converted a few people, but then there's always the doubters that go, oh, did Gibson pay you to say that? Okay guys, why would Gibson pay me to advertise a guitar that's long out of production? It just doesn't make any sense. And then the other side of the story is some people say that these just sound like a cheap effects pedal, like a pod or something. And while yes, you probably could make that argument, I haven't toyed around with those enough to know, but there's just something nice about having it built in the guitar, because this is not necessarily meant to be a stage instrument. It is a little bit difficult to get to the exact sound you want, unless you print off this map and like tape it to the back. That way you can be like, okay, I want to go there. But these things are invaluable recording tools because you have a built-in 55 different effects stock from the factory that you can go onto your computer and modify if you have the right stuff. But I think the best thing about these instruments has to be its acoustic capabilities. And that's why I think these things really are worth owning. So if you're doing some recording and you don't want to have to buy a 12 string, a resonator, a J200, these instruments will give you a fairly decent sounding replication of those instruments without having to own all those. And you can pick these robot guitars up fairly cheap because most people are too scared to even mess with them. So let's do a brief rundown of how these things work. Yes, you need a rechargeable battery. They last a good couple hours, so I mean if you wanted to play this at a show, you should be able to get through the whole entire gig with just one battery, but you can buy plenty of replacement ones just in case you need to swap it out. So once you got your fresh battery in, what you need to do is lift up this knob right here. It takes about 5 seconds for it to all kick in, and then you'll see it start to light up here. Then your gray toggle pot, you'll put it all the way in the down position for the tuning mode. And then you have 11 different presets for what tuning you want. All the way to the left is standard tuning, so watch it tune itself. And once it's in tune, it naturally just kicks out of that mode and puts your sound back on. Here's what's nice about that. Not only is this instrument a great way to replicate acoustic tones, these are great slide guitars because if you need to change your tuning really quickly, you just program the guitar and bam, no more of that hassle of changing tunings quite often. I mean, if you're somebody that only plays in standard tuning all the time, yeah, robot tuners, they're not going to do much for you. But if you dabble in alternate tunings a lot, that's when these start to become a valuable tool to a player. So from there, there's 11 different positions on this knob, and that cycles through single coil sounds, humbucker sounds, acoustic, modulation, echo, reverb, distortion, lead, effects 1, and effects 2. So you can read that diagram to see what all the presets are. But with all of those presets, you have the toggle pots here. Your blue one is all about like reverb. You've got the reverb, echo, and modulation setting. You can also further modify those with these switches on the side of the instrument. Your red one is all about distortion. So you've got EQ, distortion, and compression in the all the way up position. And then you can add your piezo as well as some progressive stuff and tuning with this gray toggle pot. So this instrument really is just the Firebird X in a more traditional shape. You've got your 3 mini humbucker look with a real piezo bridge, and your tailpiece, well, it looks funny because of the automatic tuning. So overall, I really do think if you see one of these at a fair price, I mean, to put things into perspective, this was $5,000 new, which is $1,000 more than the Firebird X. But you can pick these robot guitars up for well under $2,000. So a robot guitar for a live instrument, yeah, maybe not. But recording these things are amazing. So now that we've heard about it, let's go ahead and cycle through all these positions and see how a functioning one sounds. Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. So, a few light scratches on the face of the headstock. Truss rod works great. You have your stock black nut with your granadillo fretboard. I didn't really dive into learning how to change the strings on these things, but hey, at least I learned enough about them to use them. But I've heard it's really easy once you know what you're doing. And the next time you change the string, you're gonna notice the neck pickup, it's falling out. That's because the spring has come undone. So essentially the next string change, all you have to do is take this other side out and then rethread that spring with the screw and it will stay in place. Now as you're sitting and playing, that won't bother you, but I mean if you're jumping around, it might. These things came in a sunburst, and the more rare version is this trans black. I believe Gibson introduced this towards the end of the run for these. And I really like this flamed maple top. I mean, this is essentially a Les Paul special. It's got a flat top to it. It's not carved or anything. Back of the headstock, these have a traditional serial number. This one, it's 1076, looks like 31358. And also does have the Made in USA stamp underneath the Tronicle tuners. No volute on this one. Traditional mahogany neck here. It's kind of got a slim 60s profile. It's rather rounded though, so it's not super pencil thin or anything. So we've just got some light handling marks along the neck. And kind of the same thing going in on the back here. Now everything on this one is perfectly functional. I just bought these things for the review though. I'm not necessarily interested in, holding out for top dollar on these guys. Honestly, this guitar is already sold as of this point, but the Firebird, I have a ridiculously good deal on that one. I believe I've got it at $1,200. I mean, you can't beat that price, even though it needs some work. Now we'll do a blacklight test. Obviously, this guitar isn't that old. I don't think it's really been out in the sun too much. So it glows a little bit, but not a lot. But I do not see any breaks, cracks, or repairs to this instrument. We'll take a look at the back of the neck here. Everything's looking good here. And the face of the headstock's looking good. This instrument comes in an aftermarket hardshell case. I believe these came originally with a case gig bag combination, similar to the one that the Firebird X came with. But when I got this, it just had a normal Gibson USA gig bag, and it's like, well, I feel this guitar deserves a little bit more, so I gave it a case that I had kind of laying around spare. I mean, it's nothing fantastic. It's very similar to an Epiphone case. It's made in Canada, I believe by TKL. It's kind of their style. But single neck rest, it's got some heel support. It does its job, it's just not a Gibson case. Inside the case compartment sleeps your battery charger. That's all that comes with this instrument. These originally shipped with all those pedals and whatnot. Honestly, I've never seen an LPX come up for sale with that whole kit. But you can definitely use the guitar as is. You don't need all that other fancy stuff. But if you have it, you can unlock a lot more potential with these instruments. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Gibson Les Paul X, feel free to check out the link in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.